It was a Tuesday night, the kind of night where silence felt heavier than usual. Claire, a 29-year-old graphic designer, was sitting in her living room, surrounded by the glow of her laptop. Outside, the rain tapped steadily against the windows, rhythmic, almost comforting. But then she heard it. Not the rain, not the hum of the refrigerator. Something else. A floorboard creak upstairs. Claire froze, her hands hovering above the keyboard. Her house was old, yes, but she knew its sounds. That one was different. That one was weight. She laughed nervously to herself. Probably to its swelling from the rain, she whispered, as if saying it aloud made it real. She got up, went to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water. The house was dark except for the kitchen light, which buzzed faintly above her. She checked her phone. No new messages. Midnight had already passed. Another creak, this time closer. Claire held her breath. Her eyes lifted toward the staircase. At the top, all she saw was darkness, swallowing the hallway beyond. She whispered again, this time firmer, "It's just the house." Still, she locked the front door, then the back door, checked the windows. Even though she had checked them earlier, she felt silly, but she couldn't ignore the pulse of anxiety growing in her chest. Claire grabbed the remote and turned on the TV, letting voices fill the air. Noise was better than silence. Half an hour later, she was half asleep on the couch when the TV shut off on its own. Black screen, her reflection staring back at her. She sat up sharply. Power outage? No. The kitchen light was still buzzing, just the TV. That's when she noticed the reflection wasn't just hers. Behind her, over her shoulder, was a faint outline of a tall figure, standing at the end of the hallway. She spun around. Nothing. Empty. Her heart hammered. She grabbed her phone and dialed 911. The call didn't go through. No service. She stared at the screen in disbelief. Her phone always had service here. A whisper echoed faintly upstairs. Words she couldn't make out. Her stomach tightened. She slowly crept toward the staircase, clutching her phone like a weapon. Each step upward made the house seem bigger, darker. The whisper stopped. At the top of the stairs, she turned her head left. Her bedroom door was open. She swore she had closed it earlier. Inside, her bed was neat. But on the pillow, there was something that didn't belong, a Polaroid photograph. It was her, asleep on the couch, taken from across the room. Claire stumbled back, dropping the photo. Her throat tightened, but no scream came out. She rushed back down the stairs, straight to the front door, yanking at the locks. Still locked. Her pulse was pounding in her ears. She pressed her forehead to the door, breathing hard. That's when she heard it. A slow, deliberate knock from the other side. Claire's knuckles trembled as she pressed against the wooden front door. The knock came again, slower this time, almost playful. She forced herself to look through the peephole. Nothing. The porch was empty, the rain falling harder now, soaking the welcome mat. She squinted, searching, but there was no one standing outside. Her breath fogged the glass. She pulled back, heart slamming in her chest. The knock came again, from inside the house. This time, it was at the back door. Claire spun, nearly slipping on the rug, and rushed toward the kitchen. She stopped halfway, gripping the wall for balance. Her eyes darted around. Every shadow seemed alive. "Hello?" her voice cracked. "Who's there?" No answer, just silence. Then, faintly, the sound of footsteps running across the upstairs hallway. She bolted the front door, unlocked it, and yanked. Nothing. The door wouldn't budge. The lock clicked, but the frame wouldn't give, as if someone was pressing it shut from the other side. "No, no, no," she whispered, tugging harder. And then the TV flicked back on. The screen glowed behind her, a static hiss filling the room. Claire turned slowly. The screen wasn't showing her usual channel. It was a live feed of her own living room, the camera angle from above, like a surveillance camera she didn't own. Her stomach dropped. She saw herself on the screen, standing at the front door, frozen in place. And in the corner of the TV feed, a shadow moved, crossing behind her. Claire whipped around. Nothing, just the empty hallway. She ran into the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife she could find. Her hands shook as she held it out in front of her. The hum of the fridge seemed louder now, the buzz of the light sharp in her ears. She picked up her phone again. No signal. She tried Wi-Fi. The network name had changed. Instead of Clairehome_24, it now read, "Someone's here." Her blood turned cold. Claire crept through the house, knife in one hand, phone in the other. Every corner felt wrong, every doorway too dark. She flipped on light switches. None of them worked now. Only the kitchen light remained, buzzing faintly like it was about to die. A thud came from upstairs. She considered leaving, breaking a window, running into the rain. But her car keys, she realized they were gone. They had been on the counter earlier. Slowly, she climbed the stairs again. The boards groaned under her weight. She tried to steady her breathing, but every inhale felt too loud. Halfway up, her phone vibrated in her hand. New message. No number. Just unknown. The text read, "Don't look behind you." Claire's throat closed. Her entire body froze. She felt the pressure of eyes boring into her back. Slowly, against every instinct screaming not to, she turned her head. The hallway below was empty. But halfway down the staircase, just 2 steps below her, there was now a pair of muddy footprints that hadn't been there before. She bolted upward, sprinting into her bedroom. Slamming the door behind her, she shoved her dresser against it, then pressed her ear to the wood. Silence. Her chest heaved as she looked around. Her bed, her desk, her closet. The Polaroid still on the floor. She picked it up again, her hands trembling. This time, there was a second photo beneath it. This one showed her standing at the staircase, holding a knife, looking at her phone. Someone had taken it seconds ago. Claire screamed and threw the photo across the room. She yanked open her closet, searching for something, anything, maybe a place to hide. But as she opened the door, she froze. Inside her closet on the floor was a sleeping bag, a crumpled blanket, empty food wrappers. Someone had been living inside her house. The kitchen light finally flickered out. The house plunged into total darkness. Claire's phone flashlight shook in her trembling grip. She pointed it toward the dresser she had pushed against the door. For a moment, she thought she was safe. Then she heard the slow, scraping sound of nails dragging down the door. She backed away, breath ragged. The door didn't budge. No slamming, no kicking, just a low, guttural laugh, muffled through the wood. Claire dropped to her knees, scrambled toward the window, and tried to open it. Stuck, painted shut from years ago. She banged on the glass, but no neighbors were close enough to hear over the storm. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. "I like watching you panic." She dropped the phone, shaking uncontrollably. Then, suddenly, silence. No more scratching. No more footsteps. The house went still again. Her ears rang from the tension. She crept forward, pressed her ear to the door. Nothing. Slowly, she moved the dresser aside. Inch by inch, she wrapped her fingers around the doorknob, turned it, and pulled the door open. The hallway was empty. She moved cautiously down the stairs, knife ready, phone flashlight slicing through the darkness. Her heart still pounded, but curiosity and survival tangled together. Whoever was in her house, maybe she could catch them, maybe end this nightmare. She crept toward the basement door. It was slightly ajar. A faint light flickered from below. She pushed the door open with a knife tip and descended. Each step creaked. The air grew colder, damper. At the bottom, the faint light came from a lantern placed on the floor, and around it Claire saw them. Dozens of Polaroids, taped to the walls. Every single one was of her, sleeping, eating, working, showering. Dates written on the bottom corners. Months, years. Her stomach churned. Her knees nearly gave out. Someone hadn't just broken in tonight. They had been here, watching her, living in her home, for a very long time. Behind her, the basement door slammed shut. The basement door slammed, sealing Claire in darkness. Her phone flashlight shook as she spun around, scanning the room. The Polaroids glistened under the weak glow of the lantern, their taped corners fluttering slightly in the draft. Then came the footsteps, slow, deliberate, descending the stairs. Claire pressed herself against the wall, knife trembling in her hand. "Stay away!" she shouted, though her voice cracked and betrayed her fear. The steps stopped midway. Silence. Then a voice, low, distorted, almost playful. "You should have never noticed me." Her blood froze. The shadow of a figure stretched across the concrete floor as the intruder finally stepped into the lantern's glow. A tall man, dressed in black, face hidden beneath a hood and mask. In his hand, he carried something, a camera, old and scratched, dangling from a strap. He crouched by the lantern, lifting one of the Polaroids from the wall. He studied it like a piece of art. Then he looked at her, tilting his head. "You live such quiet nights. I made them louder." Claire's stomach turned. The Polaroids weren't random. They were arranged in patterns, each wall documenting a different season of her life. Spring, summer, winter. Her entire existence stolen, archived in secret. She clutched the knife tighter. "Why me? What do you want?" The masked man chuckled. "I already have what I want. I have you. The house gave you to me." Claire's hands slickened with sweat. She realized then he wasn't just obsessed. He believed this was his story, and she was just playing her role. When he stepped closer, Claire bolted. She shoved the lantern toward him, knocking it over. Shadows danced wildly as she sprinted across the basement, searching for another exit. Her fingers found the small basement window. Too high up, she dragged an old stool beneath it, climbed, and tried to pry it open. It screeched against the frame. Behind her, the man laughed. "Good. Run. It's better when they run." She pushed harder, the window glass rattling, the old paint cracking. Rain splattered her face as the storm outside raged. She managed to open it halfway, just enough to squeeze through. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her ankle. Claire screamed, kicking furiously. Her heel connected with his mask. He stumbled back with a grunt, and she scrambled out of the window, falling onto the wet grass outside. Her body ached, mud soaking her clothes, but she forced herself up. She ran barefoot through the rain toward the street. She reached the road, waving frantically, screaming for help. Headlights appeared in the distance, a car approaching. Relief flooded her chest. She stumbled into the middle of the road, waving both arms. The car slowed, stopping in front of her. Claire rushed to the driver's window. "Please, call the police. Someone's in my house." The window rolled down slowly. The driver was a woman, mid-40s, concerned eyes peering out. "Are you okay?" she asked. Before Claire could answer, something caught her eye in the back seat. The same scratch camera. Her breath hitched. The woman turned her head slightly, smiling in a way that made Claire's stomach twist. "He said you come running." The back door opened. The masked man stepped out. Claire's scream was drowned by the thunder. She turned and ran again, sprinting into the woods beside the road. Branches slashed her arms as she pushed through the darkness, lungs burning. She stumbled into a clearing, a small, abandoned cabin. The door hung half open. She had no choice. She rushed inside, slamming the door behind her. The cabin smelled of rot, the floorboards damp. But it was shelter. She searched frantically. A fireplace poker, a shard of broken glass. Anything she could use. Her eyes locked on an old hatchet, rusted but sharp. She gripped it tight. The footsteps approached outside. The creak of the porch. Then silence. Claire pressed herself against the wall, clutching the hatchet, her breath ragged. Every second felt like an eternity. The door creaked open. The masked man entered slowly, lantern in hand. His head tilted as he searched the cabin. "Claire," he sang softly, "it's time to finish the picture." Her muscles coiled. When he stepped closer, she swung the hatchet with all her strength. It connected. He screamed, stumbling back as blood darkened his sleeve. The lantern fell, fire sparking on the rotten floor. The cabin lit up in flames. Smoke filled the air. Claire coughed violently, forcing herself through the haze. The man lunged at her again and they crashed against the wall. She drove the hatchet down once more, this time into his mask. The blade lodged deep. He collapsed, body twitching, camera clattering across the floor. Claire staggered out of the burning cabin, gasping, rain pouring down her face. She stumbled back toward the road, her body shaking violently. Blue and red lights flashed in the distance. Someone had called the fire in. Police cars arrived, officers rushing toward her, shouting questions. She collapsed into their arms, sobbing, repeating the same words over and over. He was in my house. He was in my house. As paramedics loaded her into the ambulance, one officer stayed behind, walking into the woods toward the smoking ruins of the cabin. He found the hatchet. He found the blood. But no body. The mask lay on the floor, empty, and in the mud outside, fresh footprints led back toward Claire's neighborhood. Claire sat in the hospital bed, her hands still trembling even under the thick blankets. The antiseptic smell was sharp, but at least she was in her house. 2 officers stood outside her door. She overheard pieces of their conversation. Cabin burned down. Couldn't recover a body. She's traumatized, but alive. Claire closed her eyes, trying to block it all out. The fire, the mask, the endless photos of her. But when she closed her eyes, she still saw them. The Polaroids, staring back at her like hundreds of little windows into her life. She forced herself to breathe. He's gone, she told herself. He has to be gone. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The nurse must have returned it after checking her belongings. Claire reached for it slowly. One new notification. She opened it. Her heart plummeted. It was a picture of her, right now, lying in the hospital bed. Claire scrambled out of bed, yanking the 4 for her arm. She rushed to the door, but when she pulled it open, the hallway was empty. The 2 officers were gone. The fluorescent lights flickered above, humming faintly. Wheelchairs sat abandoned along the walls. The hospital felt wrong, deserted, like a stage set after the actors had left. Her phone buzzed again. Check room 6. Claire's breathing grew sharp, uneven. She turned down the hall. Room 6 was at the far end. Its door cracked open just slightly. She stepped closer, knifeless this time, armed only with the adrenaline rushing through her veins. Inside, the room was dark except for the glow of a single lamp. On the bed lay stacks of Polaroids. She stepped forward cautiously and picked one up. It was her again, but this time in the hospital hallway just a moment ago. A floorboard creaked behind her. Claire spun. A figure stood in the hallway. Not masked this time. Bare-faced. A man in his late 30s, unshaven, eyes hollow, but filled with obsession. I didn't die, he whispered. You made sure I lived for you. She stumbled back, knocking the lamp over. Sparks flared, and the room was thrown into shadow. She sprinted into the hallway, her bare feet slapping against the cold linoleum. The man's footsteps thundered after her, echoing through the empty ward. She turned corners desperately, searching for an exit. Every hallway looked the same, sterile and endless. Finally, she saw the elevator at the end of the hall. She ran for it, slamming the button repeatedly. The ding of its arrival nearly broke her. The door slid open. She leapt inside, hitting the lobby button. The doors closed just as his hand slammed against them, fingers clawing through the gap. The elevator shook violently as it descended. Claire pressed herself against the wall, clutching her chest, gasping. The panel lights flickered. The elevator groaned to a halt between floors. A dim emergency light flickered on. From above, in the ceiling vent, came the sound of metal scraping. Then a voice, dripping with glee. You can't leave me in the house alone. His face appeared in the vent, peering down at her. Claire screamed, slamming every button on the panel. The elevator lurched downward again. She ducked into the corner, eyes wild, but the vent cover rattled, screws popping loose. The elevator crashed to the lobby with a violent jolt. The door slid open, and Claire ran, stumbling into the reception area. This time, real nurses and police officers turned in shock as she collapsed onto the floor. "Help me!" she cried. "He's here! He's here!" They rushed to her, surrounding her, lifting her up, One officer placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "It's okay, Claire. You're safe now." She looked up at him, relief spilling out in tears. But then she saw it, sticking out from under his sleeve, a muddy footprint tattoo, identical to the prints she had seen on her staircase. Her face went pale. The officer leaned closer, smiling faintly. "You'll never really leave the house." The camera's flash went off. Blackout. Claire refused to sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, the flash of the camera echoed in her skull. The hospital tried to sedate her, but she fought it. On the third night, she made her decision. She couldn't stay in hospitals. Couldn't trust the police. Couldn't trust anyone. She had to go back to the house. It was insane. She knew that. But deep down, something told her the nightmare would never end until she confronted it at the source. Rain lashed against her car windshield as she parked at the curb. The house loomed in the storm, every window a black eye watching her. She clutched the knife she'd stolen from the hospital cafeteria and stepped inside. The smell hit her first. Damp wood, mold, and something else, something rotten. The power was still out. The silence was unbearable. As she moved to the living room, her flashlight beam caught the walls. Her breath hitched. New Polaroids were taped up. Not old ones. Fresh ones. Taken after the cabin fire. After the hospital. One showed her collapsing in the hospital lobby. Another showed her screaming in the elevator. The house wasn't just a place. It was recording her. Her phone buzzed again. She looked down. A new Wi-Fi network appeared. "Welcome home, Claire." A voice whispered through vents, low and distorted. "You left, but the house, it always brings you back." She gripped her knife tighter. "Where are you?" She screamed into the empty air. The whisper came again, but now from multiple directions at once. Upstairs, the basement, the walls themselves. "We're all here. We've always been here." Shadows moved at the edges of her flashlight. Figures, tall and faceless, flickering in and out of the corners. Claire stumbled back toward the front door. She yanked the knob, locked, though she had just left it open. The walls began to tremble, frames shaking, Polaroids fluttering like wings. At the top of the staircase, the masked man appeared again. Not dead, not hurt, just standing, watching. Behind him, more figures stepped out of rooms. Different faces, men, women, all holding cameras. Each raised their devices at once. Flash, flash, flash. The light blinded her. Claire bolted for the basement, the one place she thought she might escape. She sprinted down the stairs, Polaroids crunching under her feet. But the basement was different now. Larger, endless. The walls stretched back into blackness, lined with thousands, millions of photos. Every second of her life. Every breath. Every glance. She dropped the knife. Her hands trembled as she stumbled through the corridor of images. The masked man's voice followed. "This is forever, Claire. The house keeps what it loves." She screamed, clawing at the photos, tearing them from the walls. But behind each one was another. And another. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with shaking hands. Video recording started. On the screen, she saw herself holding the phone, just as she was now. Behind her, the masked man loomed closer. She turned. Claire gasped awake. But she wasn't in her house. She wasn't in the hospital. She wasn't in the cabin. She was lying in a stranger's bedroom. A clean, suburban space she didn't recognize. Light blue walls, posters of a teenage girl's favorite band, clothes piled in the corner. Her heart raced. Her body felt heavy, as if she'd been sedated. She sat up slowly, clutching her aching head. On the nightstand beside her bed sat a camera. Its red recording light was blinking. Footsteps echoed outside the room. The door creaked open, and a young girl stepped in, no older than 15. She froze when she saw Claire sitting on the bed. "Who are you?" the girl stammered. "Why are you in my room?" Claire shook her head violently, trying to make sense of it. I don't know. I didn't come here. I swear." The girl backed away, but then her eyes flicked to the walls. Claire turned slowly. Polaroids. Hundreds of them. But this time, they weren't a Claire. They were the girl, sleeping, eating, brushing her teeth, walking to school. Every moment of her life, captured and displayed. Claire's chest tightened. She understood now. The house, it's moving. Claire stumbled to the door, desperate to get out. But when she opened it, the hallway beyond wasn't the girl's home. It was her own house. The same staircase, the same creaking boards, the same dark hallway. The girl screamed behind her, clutching her own Polaroid from the wall. "This is my house. You're not supposed to be here." Claire grabbed her shoulders. "No, listen to me. It's not your house anymore. It's never just one house. It chooses people. It chose you." The air grew heavy. Lights flickered. Voices filled the vents again, overlapping whispers, laughter, sighs. Claire pulled the girl into the hallway. Together, they ran. But every door they opened led not to escape, but to another version of the house. A rotting, abandoned kitchen. A pristine 1950s dining room. A blood-stained bedroom with broken furniture. The house wasn't one place. It was every place. Claire realized a truth with a chill that shook her bones. The house wasn't haunted. The house was a haunting. They burst into the living room. The TV was on, static buzzing. Slowly, the screen flickered, showing them Claire and the girl, standing in the living room, staring at the TV. The girl whispered, "It's filming us." Claire shook her head. "No, it's already filmed us." One by one, cameras clicked from the shadows. Flashes filled the room, blinding and endless. The last thing Claire saw was the girl's terrified face frozen in the flash. And then, darkness. Claire opened her eyes. The world around her wasn't real, or at least it didn't look real. She stood in a corridor made of televisions. Old box sets, flat screens, broken monitors, stacked from floor to ceiling, stretching into infinity. Every single screen flickered with her life. Claire at 6 years old, blowing birthday candles. Claire in high school, walking home at night. Claire on the couch last Tuesday, before the first creak upstairs. She staggered forward, dizzy. Each screen buzzed louder as she passed. The images weren't just her anymore. She saw the girl from Act 6, then a young man, then an elderly woman. Hundreds of strangers, each trapped in their own house. Claire whispered to herself, "It's not just me, it's everyone." She turned a corner and froze. In the glow of the screens, dozens of people sat in chairs. Still, silent, their faces hidden behind cameras, strapped over their heads, lenses where their eyes should be. The watchers. Every time a screen flashed, their heads turned in unison, clicking shutters, recording endlessly. One of them stood up. Claire's heart stuttered as she recognized him. The masked man. He wasn't bleeding anymore. His mask was gone. His face was empty, smooth, blank skin where features should be. The camera lens protruded from where his eyes once were. "You belong here now," he said, though his mouth didn't move. The words seemed to crawl out of the static itself. Claire stumbled back. "No, I'm not one of you." The masked figure extended a Polaroid toward her. She hesitated, then looked. It wasn't her. It was a girl from Act 6, crying in her bedroom. The image developed in her hand, the face clearer with each second. The voice whispered, "She will replace you, unless you take the camera." Claire dropped the photo, her hands shaking. Was that what this was? Each victim forced to become a watcher, so the cycle could continue? She ran. The corridor twisted, screens buzzing louder, brighter, faster. Images flashed so quickly they seared into her brain. Her own face, the girl's face, hundreds of strangers, and then nothing, just black screens. Her own reflection staring back at her in the glass. Her face warped, distorted, stretching into static. She reached out, touched the screen, and her hand went straight through. Claire stumbled out into daylight. A street, a neighborhood, children riding bikes, neighbors cutting grass, dogs barking. Normal. Too normal. She turned around. Behind her stood a house. Not hers. Not the girl's. A different one, but the same shape. The same black windows. The same silent invitation. The girl from Act 6 stood at the porch, Polaroids in her hand. She looked at Claire with wide, terrified eyes. Claire took a step forward, wanting to warn her, but when she tried to speak, her voice came out wrong, mechanical, distorted, like static. The girl dropped her photos and screamed. Claire froze, raising her hands. That's when she saw it, a camera lens embedded in her palm. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was a watcher. The camera shutter clicked. But it wasn't Claire's face in the photo this time. It was Ethan's, a 22-year-old college student, groggy, sitting at his desk, staring at his laptop. He rubbed his eyes, unaware the picture had been taken at all. The Polaroid slid quietly onto his desk from the darkness. He frowned, picking it up. What the hell? His dorm room was locked. Or at least, he thought it was. That night, Ethan tried to shake it off. Probably a prank from one of his roommates. But as he brushed his teeth, he noticed his reflection in the mirror wasn't matching his movements exactly. He froze. His reflection lifted a camera and took a photo. The mirror went dark. When Ethan flipped the light on and off again, the mirror was normal. His reflection moved as it should, but his phone buzzed on the sink. New photo received. It was him, brushing his teeth, from the angle of the mirror. Later, as he lay in bed, Ethan heard scratching from inside his closet. He got up, annoyed. All right, whoever's screwing with me, cut it out. He opened the door. Nothing but clothes. Then his phone vibrated. Another photo. This one showed him, standing at the closet, phone in hand. Behind him in the picture was a blurry figure with long hair, head tilted unnaturally. He spun around, empty, but faintly, from the shadows of the closet, came the whisper, "Someone's in the house." The next day, Ethan sat in the library, exhausted. He told his best friend about the weird night. His friend laughed it off as lack of sleep. But in the far corner, someone was watching him. A woman, pale, eyes sunken, holding a camera in both hands. Ethan caught her gaze. She snapped a photo, then vanished behind the shelves. When he went after her, all he found was a Polaroid left on the table. It was him, sitting in the library, looking terrified. Scrawled across the bottom, in smudged ink, Claire. Back at his dorm, Ethan decided to leave. Bags packed, car keys in hand. He wasn't going to stay another night. But when he opened the door, the hallway was gone. Instead, he stood in a familiar dark corridor. The house. Polaroids lined the walls again. Some were Claire's. Some were his. Others were strangers. The voices overlapped in a deafening chorus. Laughter, whispers, screams. And then, from the top of the stairs, she appeared. Claire. But she wasn't Claire anymore. Her face flickered like static, her hands trembling as camera lenses protruded from her palms. Her voice crackled, broken between human and machine. "It's your turn now." The shutters began to click, one after another, flashes lighting the hallway. Ethan stumbled backward, blinded, until his world became nothing but white light. Ethan's scream still echoed in the walls when the screen went black. Then, faintly, another image appeared, a suburban neighborhood. Houses lined up neatly, street lamps glowing. Every house looked normal. But one by one, the lights in each house flickered. Curtains moved. Shadows passed across windows. And then, cameras clicked in unison, like 1,000 shutters firing at once. Detective Marisol Vega sat in her cluttered office, lit only by the glow of her desk lamp. She was reviewing missing persons files. Claire, Ethan, the teenage girl, a dozen others, all unrelated, all vanished from their own homes, except one thing connected them. Each family had reported strange Polaroids in their houses before the disappearances. She laid the photographs across her desk. Claire asleep on the couch, Ethan at the closet, the girl brushing her hair. Every photo bore the same scrawl phrase on the back. "Someone's in the house." Marisol visited Ethan's dorm. His belongings were still there, his computer open. She scrolled through his files and froze. Hundreds of images filled his hard drive, of him, of his friends, of her. Her own photo stared back at her, sitting at her desk earlier that night, drinking coffee. Her pulse quickened. She hadn't noticed anyone near her. Behind her photo, a shadowed figure loomed. Back at the precinct, Marisol dug deeper. She traced a Polaroid connection. Searching the web, that's when she found it. A hidden forum, thousands of users, threads filled with photos of strangers inside their own homes, not stolen from social media. Taken live. She clicked one thread. Her breath caught. It was a live stream. Her, sitting in her office. Right now. She slammed her laptop shut, heart racing. The precinct was silent. Too silent. She walked the halls, but every door she passed led not to offices, but a room she didn't recognize. Claire's living room, Ethan's dorm, the girl's bedroom. The house was bleeding into reality, spreading like a virus. Every building connected. The fluorescent lights above flickered, then went out. From the darkness, the clicking of hundreds of cameras filled the air. When the emergency lights flicked on, Marisol saw them. Dozens of figures standing shoulder to shoulder, blocking every exit. Some wore masks. Some had cameras grafted into their faces. Some were faces she recognized from missing person files, including Claire. Her voice was static, broken but commanding. It's not one house anymore. It's all of them. Marisol drew her gun, firing at the nearest figure. The bullet hit, but the body dissolved into static, reforming a moment later. The walls warped, the precinct groaning like a living creature. Polaroids rained from the ceiling, fluttering down like dead leaves. Each one showed Marisol in different positions, firing her gun, running, screaming. Her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. She pulled it out with shaking hands. New network available. House_net_001. Her reflection appeared in the phone screen. She wasn't herself anymore. Her eyes glowed with the faint red light of recording lenses. The watchers stepped closer. Claire whispered through the static, "Welcome home." News reports flickered across televisions worldwide. Anchors tried to keep calm, but their eyes betrayed fear. Entire neighborhoods reporting simultaneous break-ins. Families vanishing overnight. Identical Polaroids turning up on doorsteps across different states, countries, continents. The phrase was the same everywhere. Someone's in the house. Governments called it mass hysteria. Psychologists called it contagion delusion. But then, the cameras started showing up live on broadcast. A reporter vanished mid-segment. His empty chair filled the screen until a Polaroid slid into frame, showing his last moment alive. Detective Marisol, still resisting the pull of the watchers, traveled through the shifting, warping neighborhoods. Streets looped back into themselves. Everywhere she turned, the same house appeared. Different facades, different addresses, but the same inside. She entered one at random. Inside, the walls were lined with monitors. On each, she saw people around the world. In Tokyo apartments, Brazilian favelas, New York skyscrapers, all inside their own versions of the house. Marisol whispered to herself, "It's not a house. The world is the house." Behind her, a figure stepped from shadows. Claire, but not the broken, half-human Claire anymore. She was radiant in the glow of static, her eyes glowing red like recording lights. Her voice was everywhere, surrounding Marisol. "We told you, there's no outside. There's only inside. You don't live in the house lives in you." The screens flickered. On them, Marisol saw herself. Not once, but infinite copies, each in different rooms, different poses, all staring back at her. The act cut wide, cinematic. Times Square. Giant screens flashing endless Polaroids of crowd. Each photo showing people 1 second before they turned their heads. London. Big Ben surrounded by faceless watchers, their shutters clicking in perfect rhythm with the clock. Tokyo. Shibuya Crossing, where every billboard screen showed thousands of people trapped in their own houses. The house had bled into the entire planet. Marisol raised her gun, aiming at Claire. "This ends with me?" Claire only smiled, lifting a camera. "No, it begins with you." The flash went off. Marisol stumbled, blinded. When her vision cleared, she wasn't holding a gun anymore. She was holding a Polaroid camera. Her reflection stared back from a broken screen on the wall. Her eyes were gone, replaced with lenses. She dropped the camera, but her hands moved without her will, snapping photo after photo. On the monitors, millions of Marisols stared back, millions of watchers. The screen faded to black. Then, a single whisper, "Someone's in your house." The audio lingered, faint breathing audible in the background, as if the voice was speaking directly from the viewer's own room. 1 year later, the world had changed. Cities stood empty, silent except for the hum of static echoing through the streets. Windows flashed with Polaroid images that appeared and vanished without explanation. Most of humanity had either vanished or changed. Those who remained lived like fugitives, avoiding cameras, mirrors, and even reflective glass. Among the survivors was Marisol, or what was left of her. Her eyes were covered with dark goggles, hiding the faint glow of red recording lights beneath. She refused to let the others see. She told herself she was still human, though sometimes, when she blinked, she could hear the click of a shutter inside her skull. The refuge. Marisol led a small group. Jonas, an ex-firefighter, gruff but loyal. Maya, a teen hacker who believed the network could still be destroyed. Evelyn, a mother searching for her missing son. They lived underground, in tunnels lit only by candles. Technology was dangerous. Any device connected to the house net risked infection. Still, Maya secretly kept a laptop. "If we can find the source server," she whispered one night, "we can cut the watchers off." Jonas scoffed. "The whole world's a source now." Marisol said nothing. But deep inside, she knew Maya was right. The house had started somewhere. If they could find its root, maybe they could kill it. The journey. The group traveled by night, avoiding open streets. Every window seemed to watch them. Every lamppost hummed faintly like a camera charging. In an abandoned mall, they found walls covered with Polaroids. But these were different. They showed the future. One photo showed Jonas, throat torn open. Another showed Maya, staring blankly with cameras in her eyes. Another showed Evelyn holding her son, but her son was faceless. And at the center was Marisol. Her Polaroid showed her standing alone in a burning house. She ripped it from the wall. Trembling, "This doesn't decide us," she whispered. But the others weren't so sure. The betrayal. That night, Jonas disappeared. The group searched, calling his name. They found him standing in a department store, staring at his own photo taped to the mirror. His eyes were wide, unblinking. "I saw it," he murmured. "I saw the moment it happens. And if it's already taken, maybe I don't have to fight anymore." He raised the camera, turned it on himself, and clicked. The flash blinded them. When their vision cleared, Jonas was gone. Only his photo remained, fluttering to the floor. The true enemy. They pressed on, shaken. Eventually, they reached the ruins of an old broadcasting tower. Maya swore the signal was strongest here. Inside, the walls buzzed with static. Dozens of cameras hung from wires, lenses twitching like insects. And at the center, tied into the machinery, was a figure. Claire, not fully human, not fully watcher. Her body was fused with cables, her veins glowing faint red. Her voice bled from every speaker. "You keep running, but there's nowhere left to go. The world is the house. I am the house." Marisol raised her gun. Evelyn pulled out a knife. Maya typed frantically, trying to shut the system down. The cameras all clicked at once. Cliffhanger ending. The tower began to shake. Screens lit up with images of cities burning, oceans boiling, the sky tearing open into static. Claire's voice grew louder, almost triumphant. "When the last photo is taken, the world will be complete." Marisol screamed into the chaos. "Then I'll burn the album." She fired at the main server. Sparks erupted. Fire spread. The screens went white. Everything dissolved into static. The static world. Marisol opened her eyes. The world was white noise. Buildings dissolved into static. People flickered in and out like corrupted video files. The ground itself was a mosaic of photographs, billions of Polaroids overlapping each other like scales. Each photo hummed faintly. When she bent down and picked one up, she saw herself inside it, screaming, mouth wide, frozen forever. Maya and Evelyn appeared beside her, dazed but alive. The tower was gone. The fire had vanished. They were inside something else. "We're not in the world anymore," Maya whispered. "We're inside the album." Claire's ascension. The sky rippled, and from it descended Claire. No longer fused to machines, now something much greater. Her body was fractured glass and camera lenses, her voice layered with thousands of whispers. "You try to burn it," she said, her tone almost sorrowful. "But the house can't be destroyed. Every memory you make, every glance is a photograph. You feed it." Around her, Polaroids fluttered like snow. Each one captured their every movement in real time. Marisol fired her gun into the air. The bullets shredded photos, but more appeared instantly, like blood cells healing a wound. The test of will. Evelyn clutched her son's photograph, the one she had carried since Act 11. Tears streamed down her face. "Please, if this thing is alive, give him back to me." The photos stirred, fluttering faster, rearranging. One floated down into her hand. She gasped. It showed her son smiling, reaching for her. She looked up, hope breaking through. "He's alive?" Claire tilted her head. Every soul is alive in the house, but not as you remember them. Behind Evelyn, a child's laughter echoed. She turned. Her son stood there, faceless, hollow, holding a camera. Evelyn screamed, collapsing, the Polaroid burning in her hands. Maya's gambit. Maya opened her laptop, typing furiously. Even in this unreal place, the keyboard responded. Lines of code filled the screen. "I can corrupt it," she hissed. "If the house is an archive, then I can make it forget." Claire's voice thundered. "You can't delete memory. You can only add to it." Maya smirked, fingers flying. "Then I'll give it too much to remember." The sky cracked. Thousands, no millions, of new images poured down, blank, meaningless photos. Static snapshots flooding the system. The house screamed. Marisol's choice. The ground split beneath them. Evelyn was pulled under, reaching for her son's photo until she vanished in the static. Maya collapsed, the laptop sparking, her body dissolving into white noise. Only Marisol remained. Claire descended before her, eyes glowing red. "You see? This was always the end. The house is all of us. You can fight it, or you can join it." Marisol raised her gun, hand steady. Her reflection stared back from 1,000 Polaroids floating in the air. She whispered, "Then let me be the last photograph." She pulled the trigger. The flash swallowed everything. Epilogue. The world was quiet. A small suburban house sat under a peaceful sky. Curtains swayed gently in the breeze. Inside, a family laughed, eating dinner together. On the mantel, above the fireplace, sat a photo album, black leather, unlabeled. The little girl of the house reached for it. Her mother smiled. "Not that one, honey. That's for later." The girl opened it anyway. The first photo inside wasn't of her family. It was Marisol, staring out, eyes glowing. Years later, the world was quiet, too quiet. A small town stood under an endless gray sky. Children rode bikes. Families smiled. Neighbors waved at one another. It looked normal, but nothing was normal. Every movement, every smile, every blink was echoed instantly on Polaroids that fluttered from the air and drifted to the ground. The townspeople picked them up, tucked them into their pockets like it was the most natural thing in the world. They didn't notice the faint red glow in their eyes. They didn't notice the static hum in the wind. They were all part of the album now. A different child. But not everyone. One child, Naomi, age 12, realized the difference. She noticed when her friends repeated the same laugh 3 times in a row. She noticed when her teacher's face froze mid-sentence, then reset like a skipping video. She noticed when Polaroids of her showed things she hadn't done yet, like the one she found tucked under her pillow last night. A photo of her standing in front of a burning house. The old album. Naomi's grandmother was the only one who still whispered warnings. She kept an old black leather photo album hidden under her bed, never letting anyone touch it. One night, Naomi stole it. She opened the cover. Inside were photographs unlike the others, worn, burned at the edges, covered in static. She saw faces she didn't know. Claire, Ethan, Marisol, Evelyn, Maya, all staring out, eyes glowing faint red. On the last page was a blank slot, waiting for Naomi, the visitors. That night, she woke to the sound of footsteps in her house. She peered out the window and froze. Figures stood in the street, dozens of them, cameras for eyes. Their shutters clicked in unison, every flash lighting up the neighborhood. Her parents didn't stir. Her brother didn't move. They all just sat at the dinner table, smiling at the cameras, waiting to be photographed. Naomi whispered to herself, "They're not my family anymore." The choice. Naomi ran to her grandmother's room. The old woman was awake, trembling, clutching the album. "They'll take you if you stay," she warned. "The house doesn't want us to live. It wants us to be remembered." Naomi asked a question that had haunted survivors for decades. How do we stop it? Her grandmother's eyes filled with tears. You don't. You just choose how you're remembered. The final scene. Naomi ran out of the house, clutching the album. The watchers followed, shutters firing like thunder. She ran into the woods, branches tearing at her skin. Finally, she stopped in an old, crumbling cabin, the same one Claire had once fled to. She opened the album. Inside, the photos began to burn, one by one, smoke rising from the pages. The watchers surrounded her. Their cameras flashed faster, desperate to capture her. Naomi lifted her face, defiant. "Then take this picture. Make it the last one." She tore the album in half. A flash brighter than the sun consumed everything. Epilogue. Silence. A modern living room. A family laughing together. A little boy flips through a photo album on the coffee table. He pauses on a page. A photo of a girl he doesn't know. Naomi, her eyes glowing. Inside the album, Naomi opened her eyes. There was no forest, no fire, no cabin, only corridors. Endless corridors made of shelves, stretching forever in both directions. Each shelf held millions of photo albums, all black leather, all humming faintly as if alive. She picked one up at random. On its cover, a name, Claire. Inside, her entire life, every moment, every breath. The final page showed Claire standing in static, smiling faintly, eyes glowing red. Naomi dropped it, heart racing. Every album was a person. Every person was an album. And she was standing in the center of the library of eternity, the watcher's domain. Footsteps echoed. Naomi ducked behind a shelf, clutching her own album tight. Shadows passed between the aisles. Dozens of watchers moved silently, their lenses turning side to side, shutters clicking as they searched. And among them, Claire. But she wasn't Claire anymore. Her body was fractured like broken glass, her voice layered in echoes. "You can't burn the album, Naomi. You're part of it now. Just like me. Just like all of us." Naomi covered her mouth, holding her breath. The gathering. At the center of the archive, Naomi discovered a great hall. A massive table stretched across the room, its surface covered in albums. Thousands of them. Seated around it were the original victims. Claire, Ethan, Marisol, Evelyn, Maya, all pale, eyes glowing red, speaking in whispers of static. Each turned their gaze toward Naomi. Claire rose. "The house has no walls anymore. The album is the world. But every archive needs a librarian. It has chosen you." Naomi shook her head violently. "No, I'm not one of you." The shutters all clicked in unison. The test. Claire extended Naomi's album toward her. Its last page was still blank. "All you have to do is take one picture. Place it here. And the cycle will be complete." Naomi's hands trembled. She stared at the empty slot. Her photo didn't belong there, not yet. Instead, she raised the album high and slammed it shut. The sound echoed like thunder. The archive shook. Shelves toppled. Albums burst open. Polaroids scattering like feathers in a storm. The watchers screamed. The truth. Naomi saw it then, the truth. The album wasn't just memory. It was belief. Every time someone feared the house, every time they whispered the phrase, someone's in the house, they gave it power. The photos weren't just records. They were cages. And her blank page was the key. The final stand. Naomi ran through the collapsing archive. Watchers chasing. Shells crashing down around her. She found a massive door into the corridor, carved with countless faces, screaming silently. She placed her album against it. The door pulsed, cracked, and swung open. Beyond was nothing but white light. The watchers stopped, unwilling to follow. Claire's voice echoed one last time. If you step through Naomi, there is no memory, no album, not even you. Naomi closed her eyes. I'd rather be forgotten. She stepped into the light. Epilogue. Silence. A child's bedroom. A little girl sleeping soundly. No cameras. No Polaroids. No whispers in the vents. Her mother kissed her forehead and whispered, "You're safe, darling. No one's in the house." For the first time in eternity, it was true. Or was it? On the nightstand, the black leather album sat closed, its cover blank, its pages unwritten, waiting, a quiet beginning. Decades had passed since Naomi stepped into the light. The world seemed normal again. Families laughed. Children played. Technology advanced. No Polaroids fluttered from ceilings. No whispers echoed in vents. The phrase, "someone's in the house," had faded into obscurity, nothing more than an urban legend. But in one small town at the edge of a cul-de-sac, a new family moved into a 2-story home. Fresh paint, clean windows, a perfect life waiting to be lived. The youngest child, Daniel, age 9, explored the attic. Behind a wall panel, he found a door he hadn't seen before. A tiny, narrow door, no taller than his shoulders. It was locked, but as he touched it, a whisper tickled his ear. "You found me." The forgotten room. That night, Daniel dreamed of the door again. He dreamed it opening. Inside was a small room, completely empty, except for a single black leather album on a stool. When he woke, his hands were dirty. Dust from the attic clung to his fingernails. He hadn't just dreamed. First signs. Over the next few days, Daniel began to notice small things. His toys weren't where he'd left them. His reflection lingered in the mirror a second too long. At night, he heard the faint sound of a camera shutter coming from the attic. One morning, he found a Polaroid on his pillow. It was him, asleep, mouth slightly open. The handwriting on the bottom was jagged, shaky. "Someone's in the house." Naomi's return. Daniel returned to the attic, determined to open the forgotten door. This time, it swung open easily. Inside was the empty room from his dream. The album sat on the stool, its pages blank. He reached out but froze. A voice whispered from the shadows, "Don't open it." A girl stepped forward, pale, glowing eyes. Her features familiar, though cracked with static. Naomi. She wasn't human anymore, but not quite a watcher either. She lingered between. "You have to burn it," she told him. "Don't let the album remember you." The struggle. Before Daniel could respond, the shutters began clicking. The walls of the attic trembled. Polaroids rained from the ceiling, each showing Daniel standing at the attic door, closer and closer, frame by frame. Naomi grabbed his shoulders. Her touch was ice. "You have one chance. Don't become me." The door slammed shut behind them. Inside the forgotten room, the album snapped open on its own. Its pages flipped wildly, photos appearing out of nothing. Daniel playing in the yard, Daniel brushing his teeth, Daniel staring in horror at the album. The final page was blank, waiting, the ending. Naomi screamed, forcing Daniel toward the stool. "Choose. Tear it now or you'll never leave." Daniel's small hands shook as he reached for the album. He tore the page out. The attic went silent. For a moment, everything was still. Then, slowly, the blank page began to develop. Daniel's own face appeared, frozen mid-tear, eyes wide in terror. Naomi collapsed to her knees. "It always writes the last page." The room went dark. Epilogue. Weeks later, Daniel's family packed their things. They told neighbors they were starting fresh after Daniel's disappearance. The house sat empty, but in the attic behind the panel, the forgotten room waited. The album sat on its stool. The last page filled. The whisper returned. Someone's in the house. Daniel awakens. Daniel opened his eyes. He wasn't in his house anymore. Not in the attic. Not in the forgotten room. He was inside a photograph. The world was flat. The colors faded like ink on old paper. The air tasted of dust and chemicals. Every sound echoed with a faint hiss, like static on film. He looked down at his hands. His skin was washed out, pale. Lines of white bordered his vision, as though the world itself was a Polaroid frame. The hall of photos. Daniel wandered. The sky above wasn't sky at all. It was a ceiling of dangling Polaroids, millions of them, each swaying gently, each showing a frozen moment. He passed one and gasped. It was him at the dinner table with his family, smiling. Another showed him running through the yard. Another showed him asleep, clutching his toy dinosaur. He reached up to touch one. His hand sank into the photo, and for a moment he was there, sitting at the dinner table again. His family smiled, but their faces didn't move. Their eyes glowed faint red. He ripped his hand back, trembling. The others. Voices echoed. Daniel turned and saw others wandering between the swaying photos. Claire, Ethan, Marisol, Evelyn, Maya, all of them. They weren't quite alive, but not gone either. Their bodies flickered between flesh and static. Their eyes glowed faintly. Claire stepped forward. Sadness etched across her fractured face. Welcome to the album, Daniel. This is where we stay when the house remembers us. Marisol added, her voice hollow. We're the photos now. Naomi's warning. From the shadows, Naomi appeared. But she looked different. Stronger now, her glow brighter, her voice clearer. I told you not to open it, she whispered, crouching beside him. But it doesn't matter. You're here, just like me. Daniel clutched his chest, trying not to cry. Can we escape? Naomi shook her head. Not escape, but maybe we can destroy it from the inside. The living album. The ground trembled. The Polaroids above began to shift, rearranging themselves. They formed walls, hallways, doorways, a moving labyrinth. From its depths came the watchers. Hundreds of them, their shutters firing with every step. Each time a flash went off, a new Polaroid fell, showing Daniel's face, running, terrified, trapped. Naomi grabbed his hand. Run! They darted through the shifting corridors, chased by the clicking horde. Polaroids crumbled under their feet, revealing nothing but endless static below. The core. At the center of the labyrinth stood a massive Polaroid, taller than a skyscraper. Its surface was blank. Naomi pointed. That's the core. The album's first page. If we destroy it, everything collapses. Claire appeared behind them, her static warped body blocking their path. Her voice was both pleading and commanding. Don't do this. If you burn the core, you erase everyone. Us. You. Your family. The world itself. Daniel froze. His hands trembled. Naomi shouted at him. They're already gone. The only way out is no memory at all. The final choice. The watchers closed in, shutters flashing faster, blinding. The core loomed ahead. Daniel's small hands gripped the torn page he'd ripped from the album back in the attic. The page that had already trapped him here. He stepped forward, raising it high. Claire's voice cracked with desperation. Please, if you do this, we'll all be forgotten. Daniel whispered through clenched teeth. Then maybe it's better if nobody remembers. He pressed the torn page against the core. Collapse. The world convulsed. Polaroids rained from the ceiling, disintegrating into ash. The watchers screamed, their shutters snapping wildly until they dissolved into static. The corridors collapsed. The sky shattered. Naomi clutched Daniel tight as everything was swallowed in white light. Epilogue. A quiet suburban house. A family sat together, eating dinner. Laughter filled the air. But on the mantel, there was no photo album. No Polaroids, no static hum. For the first time in centuries, there were no watchers. And yet, in the faint reflection of the window, Daniel's face appeared, staring back. A new dawn. It had been 10 years since the collapse of the album. The world was ordinary again. Children grew up without fear of Polaroids. Families slept through the night without hearing whispers in the vents. Technology advanced, cities flourished, and the phrase "someone's in the house" was forgotten entirely. No one remembered Claire, or Marisol, or Naomi, or Daniel. That was the price of oblivion, or so it seemed. Strange returns. One evening, a photographer named Lena Ortiz developed a roll of film in her darkroom. She froze when the first print emerged. It wasn't the city skyline she had shot. It was a little boy, pale, blank expression, standing in an empty attic. Behind him, a black leather album sat on a stool. The reappearing photos. Soon, reports trickled in. A wedding photographer in Italy captured an extra guest in every shot, a faceless figure holding a camera. A family portrait in Brazil developed with a black smudge in the corner, the shape of a small door. A Polaroid collector in Tokyo swore one of his blank photos began developing on its own. Governments dismissed it as hoaxes. The media called it viral creepypasta. But Lena knew better. The whisper, late at night, while developing another roll, Lena heard it. Soft, almost playful. Someone's in the house. She spun. The room was empty. But on her desk, fresh photos lay scattered. Photos she hadn't taken. Her apartment, her kitchen, her bed, and the last one, her at the desk, staring in fear at the photo itself. The forgotten room. Determined, Lena began researching old urban legends. That's when she found the story of the forgotten room, an attic door that appeared in certain houses across history, always with the same black album inside. Historians dismissed it as folklore, but Lena found photos of the actual families. Old Polaroids, burned at the edges. Each family vanished without explanation. The trail led her to an abandoned house at the edge of town. She climbed into the attic. The panel in the wall was waiting. The door opens. Inside, the forgotten room was exactly as the stories described. Empty, dusty, a stool in the center, and the album. But this time it was open, its first page already developing. Lena stepped closer, heart hammering. The photo was of her, standing in the room. Right now, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out with trembling hands. A new network appeared on her Wi-Fi list. House_net_002. The whisper came again, louder now. Welcome back. Epilogue. The next morning, passers-by noticed something strange about the abandoned house. All of its windows were filled with photographs, pressed against the glass from the inside, and in every single one of them was Lena's face. The upload. Weeks after Lena disappeared, her photos leaked online. At first, people thought it was an art project, eerie pictures of an abandoned house, strange Polaroids, Lena's face repeated endlessly in frames. But then something strange happened. Anyone who downloaded the files reported glitches, phones freezing, cameras turning on by themselves, new photos appearing in their galleries, pictures of themselves, asleep, unaware. The curse was no longer confined to film. The house had gone digital. The stream. A popular streamer named Alex decided to exploit the phenomenon for clicks. He broadcast live from the abandoned house, taunting the whispers. Thousands tuned in. At first, it was just static, shadows, the creak of the attic. Then the chat went wild. There's someone behind you. Bro, check the window. He's in the picture frame. Alex laughed until the feed froze. The last frame of the stream showed him staring at the camera, eyes glowing faint red. When viewers tried to close the video, their screens wouldn't shut off. Instead, new images appeared. Their own rooms. Their own reflections. The spread. Soon, a wave of reports flooded forums, social media, dark web boards. Video calls where a second person appeared faintly in the background, always holding a camera. Security footage looping endlessly, replaying events before they happened. Social media filters distorting faces into blank, glowing lenses. The house wasn't hiding anymore. It was adapting. Lena's return. One night, in a dim cafe, a group of college students whispered about the phenomenon. They joked about the phrase, "someone's in the house." Then the lights flickered. A woman sat at the far table, had pulled over her face. She raised her head slowly. It was Lena. Her skin was pale, her pupils glowing faint red. In her hand was a Polaroid camera, cracked, sparking with static. She didn't speak. She only placed a photo on the table, sliding it across. It showed the students at their table, mouths open in screams they hadn't made yet. Then the cafe lights went out. The new network. Around the world, devices began picking up a strange Wi-Fi signal. Not house_net_002. This time it was different. The underscore alive. Anyone who connected found themselves in a feed. Not watching, not chatting, streaming. Their own lives, their own homes, their own faces, forever recorded. Epilogue. In a quiet suburban neighborhood, a child played on a tablet. She giggled, holding it up to her mother. "Look, Mommy, the app takes pictures of me." The mother smiled until she noticed something. Every picture showed her daughter standing in the exact same spot. In the background of every frame was the same figure, a woman holding a camera. The world responds. The house had gone viral. By now, every device, every camera, every reflective surface was at risk. Families abandoned technology, burning phones and smashing laptops. But governments couldn't ignore it. The U.S. declared a national emergency, ordering digital blackouts. Europe formed a coalition called Project Blindfold to dismantle surveillance systems. China built mirrorless cities, banning glass and photography. But none of it worked, because the house didn't just use technology anymore. The house was technology. The experiments. Inside a secret underground lab, scientists studied survivors. People who had appeared on Polaroids or streams but hadn't vanished yet. They called them echoes. Their eyes glowed faintly. Their reflections moved half a second slower. And every so often they whispered the same phrase, "Someone's in the house." One echo begged the scientists to burn his photo. They did. His body dissolved instantly into static. The photo developed again in their printer tray. Smiling this time. The corporations. Tech giants saw opportunity where governments saw fear. A startup called Oblivion Systems claimed they could weaponize the house. Their pitch. If the house could watch anyone, anywhere, why not direct it against enemies? Executives gathered in a sleek boardroom to see the demo. A man in a chair was shown on screen. Within minutes, Polaroids of him appeared, showing his every secret, his every thought. Then his chest collapsed. His body crumbled into static. The executives applauded. The house had just become the perfect weapon. Lena's broadcast. But then came Lena. She hijacked networks worldwide. Screens flickered. Phones buzzed. Satellites turned to her signal. Her face filled every device, cracked and ghostly. "You can't control it," she said, voice layered in static. "The house isn't yours. It isn't mine. It's everyone's." Behind her, rows of watchers stood silent, shutters clicking in rhythm. The house doesn't need permission anymore. It already owns a world. The first collapse. That night, entire cities went dark. In New York, skyscraper windows flashed with Polaroids of citizens before exploding outward in showers of glass. In London, Big Ben chimed midnight, and every clock in the city froze. Photographs of the frozen moment fluttered down from the sky. In Beijing, drone swarms filled the skies, each drone snapping photos, each drone whispering through speakers, "Someone's in the house." Millions vanished. Millions more became echoes. Marisol's return. In the chaos, an old voice resurfaced. Detective Marisol Vega, thought a race in Act 12, appeared in a global live stream, but she wasn't human anymore. Her face flickered between flesh and static. She looked directly into the cameras, addressing the world. You try to fight it. You try to own it. But you never understood. The house was never a building. The house is memory itself. And memory always wins. The feed cut to black. Epilogue. Months later, resistance groups lived underground, blindfolded, surviving without technology. One child asked his mother, "What was it like before?" She smiled sadly. "Safer. Quieter. We didn't always hear the clicking." And then, faintly, a shutter snapped in the dark tunnel. The child turned his head slowly. Someone was standing in the shadows, holding a camera. The last resistance. Only a handful of survivors remained. They lived in underground caverns, deep beneath collapsed cities. No cameras, no mirrors, no glass. They spoke in whispers, too afraid to even say the cursed phrase. The group was small. Lena, now half watcher, half human, guiding them. Maya's daughter, born after the collapse, carrying her mother's laptop as a relic. Jonas's grandson, scarred but strong, believing survival was still possible. They called themselves the Unremembered. The plan. Maya's daughter believed she had found a solution. The house exists because it's remembered, she explained. What if we erase ourselves? Not just die, but vanish without leaving anything behind. No photos, no names, no memory at all. Jonas's grandson objected. That's not survival. That's extinction. Lena stepped forward, her face flickering between static and flesh. It's the only way. The house feeds on memory. If nothing is remembered, nothing can be captured. The Unremembered agreed to make one last journey. The journey, they traveled through ruined cities. Skyscrapers bent like broken teeth. Streets lined with Polaroids, fluttering endlessly, covering cars, trees, even the sky. At night, they heard the shutters. Always closer, always clicking. One by one, their group vanished. Some dissolved into photos mid-step. Others simply froze, their eyes glowing faint red, their voices whispering in unison. Someone's in the house. By the time they reached their destination, only Lena, Maya's daughter, and Jonas's grandson remained. The final house. They arrived at the place Lena had led them. A house. Ordinary. Suburban. White siding. Black shutters. A welcome mat at the door. The first house. The birthplace of it all. Its windows glowed faintly. Inside, countless albums lay stacked to the ceiling, their pages fluttering in an endless storm. The sacrifice. Inside the house, they found a single camera sitting on the table. Old. Cracked. Its lens pointed at the blank wall. Maya's daughter realized the truth. This is it. The first camera. The house began here. If we destroy it. But Lena shook her head. No. If you destroy it, the house spreads again. The only way to end it is to feed it one last time. A final photograph. The last memory. Jonas's grandson stepped forward. Then take me. But Maya's daughter refused. No. If one of us stays alive, the story continues. It has to be all of us. They looked at each other. Silent agreement. Together, they stood before the camera. The last photograph. The shutter clicked. A blinding flash filled the house. When the light faded, the albums crumbled into ash. The photographs turned blank. The whispers fell silent. The house collapsed. Epilogue. Years later, the earth was quiet. A child wandered through the ruins of the city, barefoot, curious. She found a camera buried in the dirt. Old. Cracked. She lifted it to her eye and smiled. Click. The shutter echoed. And far away, in the silence of the void, a whisper stirred. Someone's in the house. The distant future. Centuries passed after the last photograph. Humanity rebuilt, but not on Earth. The survivors' descendants lived on colonies, scattered across distant planets. Towers of steel stretched into alien skies. People spoke of Earth only as legend, and no one remembered the house, until the whispers returned. The first sign. On Erebus 9, a mining colony, engineers discovered something impossible while digging into the planet's crust. A wooden door. It led nowhere, standing upright in solid rock. Weathered, faded, a single brass knob. Carved across its surface were words in dozens of dead languages. But in English, faintly visible. Someone's in the house. The new Polaroids. Colonists laughed at first. They thought it was an artifact, a relic from Earth. They brought it to the science labs for study. That night, the first photo appeared. It wasn't taken with a camera. It simply appeared on a scientist's desk, glossy, fresh, still damp with chemicals. It showed her standing in her lab. Behind her, the wooden door loomed open. The spread. Soon, it wasn't just one photo. Every colonist began finding images of themselves. Some asleep, some walking the halls, some staring directly at the camera with glowing red eyes they didn't remember having. Security systems malfunctioned. Surveillance feeds replayed events before they happened. The whispers carried to the ventilation shafts, low and distorted. Someone's in the house. The colony descended into panic. The archivist, a historian named Dr. Amina Saeed, uncovered forgotten fragments of Earth's past. Legends of the album, the house, the watchers. Her colleagues dismissed her, but she recognized the signs. "This isn't the first time," she whispered, clutching the ancient stories. "It's the same curse. It followed us here. It always follows." The digital plague. On Erebus 9, every colonist carried neural implants, connected to the colony's mainframe. Soon, the implants were infected. Some colonists woke up with Polaroids burned into their vision. Others heard shutters clicking behind their eyes. Many collapsed, their minds overwritten by images that weren't their own. The house wasn't just in homes anymore. It was inside their heads. Amina's vision. Dr. Saeed fell asleep at her desk, surrounded by old records. She dreamed of a vast, endless corridor, the archive Naomi had once entered. There she saw Claire, Marisol, Naomi, Daniel, all standing still, their eyes glowing. Claire whispered to her, "You thought leaving Earth would save you, but the house has no planet, no sky, no walls. The house is everywhere." Amina woke screaming. On her desk lay a fresh Polaroid. It showed her, sleeping at her desk. Epilogue. From orbit, Erebus 9 shimmered faintly. Satellite feeds showed the colony's windows glowing with static. Then the feed cut out. The last image transmitted to Earth showed every colonist standing still in unison, facing the camera, whispering the same phrase together. "Someone's in the house." Silence in space. The Erebus 9 disaster was never explained. Official reports claimed a reactor failure, but whispers spread to the colonies. People had seen the photographs. To stop panic, governments banned physical photography. Every lens, every camera was outlawed. Neural feeds replaced all recording. But the house didn't need cameras anymore. It only needed memory. The first planet. On Helios Prime, colonists began reporting strange phenomena. Entire cities where every window showed the same reflection. A child standing in a dark attic. Citizens waking up with Polaroids clenched in their fists, though no cameras existed on the planet. Families vanishing, leaving only a single black leather album on their dining tables. Helios declared quarantine, but the images spread faster than disease. Amina's journey. Dr. Amina Saeed, now branded a heretic for her warnings, fled aboard a smuggler's ship. She studied the Polaroids obsessively. The paper wasn't made of chemicals. It was made of light frozen in time. She realized the truth. The house isn't just memory. It's a universe remembering itself. Her theory, the cosmos itself was the ultimate archive, and humanity's fear had given it form. The living planet. On a mining moon called Charon, workers uncovered something terrifying. A planet-wide structure, buried beneath the crust. Not natural, not alien. A house, enormous, stretching across continents. Its windows were black holes. Its doors opened into stars. When they entered, they found endless hallways lined with Polaroids, not of people, but of entire worlds. Some burned, some frozen, some still thriving. Each one whispered, "Someone's in the house." The collapse of time. As the house spread between planets, time itself began to warp. Colonists reported receiving photos of events centuries in the future. Ships vanished in hyperspace, only to reappear as Polaroids fluttering through the void. An admiral looked out the viewport of her battleship and saw a photograph taped to the glass. her ship exploding, with today's date scrawled underneath. An hour later, it came true. The cosmic archive. Amina traveled deeper into the stars, guided by visions. At last, she found it. The cosmic archive. A structure vast as galaxies. An endless album of stars. Each page turned by invisible hands. She saw Claire there. Marisol, Naomi, Daniel, Lena, all staring outward, their voices echoing through the void. You can't leave the house, because the house is the universe. Epilogue. Astronomers on distant colonies made a chilling discovery. The night sky itself had changed. The constellations were shifting. The stars were rearranging. Together, they formed the shape of a house. And when the light from those stars reached their telescopes, the first image it formed was a Polaroid. Inside, it was every living human. Staring back, the sky falls silent. Across the colonies, people noticed something horrifying. The stars were going out, not one by one, but all at once, erased like Polaroids overexposed the light. When telescopes turned toward the blackness, they didn't see empty space. They saw pages turning. The universe itself was an album, and someone was flipping through it. The survivors. Only a handful remained across scattered worlds. Among them, Dr. Amina Saeed, now aged, voice hoarse from warnings unheeded. A group of children, born after the collapse, who had never known a world without the house. Lena, neither living nor dead, her body cracked with static, a bridge between worlds. They gathered in a ruined observatory on Erebus 9, staring at the sky as it rearranged into the outline of a vast, cosmic house. Amina whispered, "The album isn't recording anymore. It's closing." The final door. A rift opened in the heavens. A doorway, massive and blinding, pulling everything toward it. The ground shook. Cities folded in on themselves like paper, collapsing into photographs that fluttered upward into the light. The survivors felt the pull. One by one, Polaroids of them appeared on the walls, already showing their fates. The last blank page of the album was waiting. Claire's return. From the doorway stepped Claire, the first victim, the first watcher. Her body was light and shadow, her face cracked but still recognizably human. She looked at Amina with pity. It was never about the house. It was never about the album. It was always about you. Humanity feared being watched. So you built me. You built all of this. And now the memory is finished. The choice. The survivors wept. Some begged to be remembered. Others begged to be erased. Amina stepped forward, frail but unyielding. "If the house is memory," she said, "then maybe the only way forward is forgetting." She reached for the blank page. Her hands shook, but she tore it in half. The collapse. Light exploded. Every photo ever taken burned at once. The walls of the universe peeled away. Stars disintegrated. Planets folded into white sheets. The whispers grew deafening. Every voice that had ever spoken a phrase. Claire, Marisol, Naomi, Daniel, Lena, Ethan, millions of others, shouted together, "Someone's in the house." And then silence. Epilogue. Nothing. No stars. No planets. No survivors. Only a quiet suburban house. Its windows dark. Its doors closed. On the mantel sat a single black leather album. A child's hand reached up, slowly opening it. The first page was blank. And then, faintly, an image began to develop. The audience's own reflection. The void. After the collapse of the universe. There was nothing. No stars. No planets. No people. Just silence. And then a single heartbeat. A light. A spark. Something was being remembered. The birth of a world. A suburban neighborhood faded into existence. Birds chirped. Children played. Cars passed on clean asphalt streets. It was Earth again, but not our Earth. Everything was just slightly wrong. The sun too bright. The colors too sharp. Faces too familiar. And in the center of it all, a small 2-story house. White siding. Black shutters. A welcome mat at the door. The first house. The family. Inside lived a family. Normal. Ordinary. A mother, a father, two children. They laughed. They argued. They dreamed of the future. They were happy. But at night, the house creaked. The children heard footsteps in the hallway. The parents dismissed it as old with settling. Until one night, a photograph appeared on the kitchen table. It showed the family, asleep in their beds. The stranger, a knock at the door. The father answered. No one was there, but on the welcome mat sat a black leather album. Brand new, pages blank. He brought it inside. The whisper. That night, the mother dreamed of a woman with fractured skin and glowing eyes. A woman who whispered in her ear, "Don't open it. Don't let the house remember you." When she woke, the album was on her nightstand, and the first page was no longer blank. It showed her, sleeping, the reboot. Slowly, the cycle began again. The family tried to ignore the photos, but they kept appearing. In drawers, under pillows, inside mirrors. The children whispered to each other at night, "Someone's in the house." And far away, unseen, the shutters began to click. Epilogue. The screen fades to black. Then, in total silence, a Polaroid develops in real time. The picture forms slowly. It isn't the family. It isn't the house. It's the audience. Their room, their chair, their screen. And beneath it, scrawled in jagged ink, "Someone's in your house."